My presentation is called Building the Right Administration Interface for Every User. So who am I? My name is Stanislav Khromov. I'm a WordPress developer at Aftonbladet. I have some social links here if you want to check me out. So I work at Aftonbladet, which is part of the Schibsted Media Group, which is kind of like this Norwegian media conglomerate that has been around for over 150 years. That has business in 29 countries and about 7,000 employees. And here are some of the brands that it operates in Sweden. So where I work, Aftonbladet, I mean, we do obviously Aftonbladet.se, which is the main site. We do some special kind of news reporting. So this is, but it's all still editorial content. And then we do, you know, some fashion stuff, some viral content. But I'm a part of what we call the Aftonbladet editorial team, which is a team of 8 people out of about 80 in total that works on Aftonbladet. And what we do mostly is we work with what we call digital experiences. So it can be like interactive media, like a podcast, or it can be like the long reads with lots of pictures in like nice formats, or yeah, a lot of stuff. I'm gonna demo some of it later. So we're 8 people, and that encompasses not only developers but also designers, product owners, and we're working in a Scrum Agile type of workflow. Yeah, so here are a few sites we've built. So, like I said, this presentation is going to be about building the right interface for every user, and user in this case is not like an end visitor. A user in this case is somebody who's going to be using the site that you build to edit content, or adding content, removing content, and stuff like that. And we're going to introduce 3 personas. Has anyone worked with personas here before? Yeah, a couple of people, so you're gonna feel right at home. We're gonna talk about content creation and site building. I don't know if anyone is here who was here at the meetup that I spoke at last time, where I spoke about Shortcake. But this is like a continuation on that talk that encompasses a bit more about wider array of content editing. So we're gonna talk about content creation, site building, available tools for content creation and site building. About finding a good middle ground, and then at the end just some links and questions. So the mission, building the right administration interface for every user. But who is the user, and how do we actually approach this problem? To do this, we've employed personas. So basically, personas is a concept that's been around for like a good 25 years, and it's roughly about like putting your users in different buckets, like depending on what they know, and like just very broad, like general user categories. And you can apply this basically to any kind of projects. In this case, we're going to apply it to building administration interfaces, but like at Aftonbladet, we also apply it to visitors who come to our sites. You know, some visitors, they only like watch sports content, so we put them in a separate bucket, and some visitors only do viral content. So we're kind of like segmenting that, and then depending on the user, we can do like different things, like showing them different articles, or serving them like ads that they're actually gonna enjoy. And yeah, building personas, usually it's done by either interviewing people, so like getting to know the users, or like have workshops to try to find out what users are capable of. So in this presentation, I'm going to introduce 3 personas. The first one is going to be William, the web editor, and this is somebody whose main job it is to write content on the WordPress site. So somebody who's not really like all that comfortable with widgets and shortcodes and you know, moving stuff around, editing like pages and layouts. He just wants to have like a simple interface to write content, edit content, and that's pretty much it. The next persona we're going to introduce is Clara, the content manager. She's like a little bit more advanced, where she might actually like write content and collect content from, but also collect content from other people, doing text adjustments. Like usually you'll find this in like a small to mid size company, where it's like they actually can employ someone to just do like the site maintenance for like a part of their time, where they might receive texts and pictures from other people inside the company and put that up on the site. So this user might actually like edit widgets, might be more comfortable with shortcodes, and would maybe be described as a power user. But we were not gonna assume necessarily that it's a technical user based on that. And then the final persona is going to be Sarah, the site builder, and this is someone who is a lot more comfortable with the WordPress, who can set up entire sites using WordPress and like page builders. Somebody who is much more technical, and first and foremost somebody who wants to have more flexibility, where it's not this mindset where a user might become afraid if it's too much. Like this last person really wants to have like as much flexibility as possible. And it's important to remember that these are all, of course, like huge generalizations, and users are actually, you know, can be all the way in between these different personas. But to be able to kind of quantify the problem and put it as a puzzle, so to speak, we're going to try to stick to these three personas and see how we can help them. So let's see here. Yeah, so how can we help William then, in this case, the web editor? So like I said, William, he wants to have a simple interface. So all we want to do is just simplify, and simplify everything, and not give them too much choice, and also make them get over this that seems hard hurdle, because this is, I don't know if any of you are familiar or like recognize this, but a lot of the times people can, when you deliver a site, they can feel a little bit overwhelmed, like they can't really, like they're a little afraid to edit it. You know, they kind of like, oh, what if I screw something up? So we really need to kind of not make this, make this more difficult by, for example, limiting what the user can do. And to realize then that it's not his fault that he's afraid to edit content. I mean, it's actually our fault as developers. And we should also provide documentation for this user, because the user writes a lot, so he most likely reads a lot as well, and might actually go through all this documentation that we provide. So if we look at Clara instead, it's important because this person is somebody who often keeps the site up to date. So it's important to find like what are the most common tasks that this user does. Is it like updating a calendar every week? It's like for a school website, and they have to have the weekly lunch schedule or something. To find those tasks and kind of think, okay, how can we make this as simple as possible? So for example, in this example with like a school maybe lunch schedule, maybe like the schedule is the same every week, but then one course changes. Like maybe we can build something so that you can easily copy the previous week's schedule over to a new week, something like that. And make them feel like they are in control of the editing, so they don't have to like go to you for everything that they need to do. But still, it's good to use a little bit of access control to restrict them from doing the most like destructive operations. So like maybe not allowing them to go into the site settings and change the site title or the permalinks or stuff like that. and they can because these people can also be a little bit like, oh, you know, they can get a little bit scared if you give them too much power. But it's important to remember that this is not about withholding, you know, power for the sake of it. I mean, if they ask for like, can I have admin access? I mean, obviously, just give it to them. It's not about that, but it's more about like making people feel comfortable with the sites. And then the final persona, Sarah. Here it's just, you know, you give them as much freedom and flexibility as they want. Try to give more freedom rather than less. But still, as like if you're a developer, for example, or if you're building a site for a client, you can still tailor the experience a little bit, for example, by making your own like content blocks. We can talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, less documentation and just make it easy for them. So as we can see, these are all like different needs. So why would they need to have the same UI? And this is where kind of content creation and site building begins to emerge as like two parallel things that coexist. So because on the one side you have content creation, we're gonna find William, and where it's mostly about editing text content, adding some pictures and stuff like that. And then somewhere on the right side, you're gonna see site building, where it's about setting up the structure for a site. And then in the middle, you might have also some users that are doing a little bit of everything. So let's talk first about content creation. So like I said, content creation is about creating content, like of textual content for site visitors, blog posts, pages, but not like site structure. So, but still content, you know, it's not only limited to text and pictures. It can be like slideshows, like interactive graphics, like embedding, like videos and polls, and other like textual elements like headings, drop caps, you know, those big letters, like the very first letter of a paragraph or a page, info boxes that you might want to place, and stuff like that. So what we would like to have is like the Medium experience. Has anyone used a Medium here? It's like this, a few people have, but it's like this super scaled down blog network, and you know, we don't want to provide a lot of complicated layout options. They're not about, you know, like make a 4-column layout and just start adding stuff. That's not very like that's not very great if you just want to like add a blog post. And it should be distraction free and seamless, predictable, previewable, just simple. So this is kind of what the Medium UI looks like, and you can see it's very scaled down. So this is their text editor, and obviously we can't get WordPress quite this scaled down right now, but we can at least not add a lot of stuff. We can at least stick to like what we have to begin with. So content creation right now, I mean, there's not a big ecosystem for it, like, which is kind of hard to believe, because like first and foremost, WordPress is a content creation platform, and it's hard to integrate in a seamless manner, and like simple interfaces, they're not really that simple. So here are a few content creation tools. Obviously, I mean, WordPress is a content creation tool, like I mentioned, and you have a distraction-free writing mode. But there's also Aesop Story Engine, which is probably like the biggest. They're going very hard at this, like doing like these cool long reads and having like a front-end editor. And then there's actually a plugin called Front-End Editor, which lets you edit text on the front end of a site. There's also a plugin called Shortcake, which gives you a UI for shortcodes, which is actually what I'm going to talk about in this presentation. There we go. All right. So first, let's talk about what WordPress has. So I mean, obviously WordPress has this editor. Everybody's comfortable with this and seen it before. WordPress has text formats which is yeah, it's just this drop-down box that you can drop down, and you can create different text styles. And actually, like, this is not not a lot of people use this feature, but it's actually like one of the simplest ways to add more like text styles to give like bigger flexibility when it comes to text styling. And I'm just gonna flash this code right now because I'm going over time a little bit, but it's very easy to integrate. So if you want to just create like you want to style, like, you want to give the user the ability to style content a little bit differently and add it like so they can easily do it in the WYSIWYG editor. It's basically like this much code. You can add like a special div with a special class, and it's very simple to integrate. And then we have shortcodes, which is of course a very good feature that's been in WordPress for a really long time. And a simple shortcode is very simple to make as well. Here's a little button shortcode that we made. It's very simple to create custom shortcodes. And Shortcake that I mentioned, it's basically like a user interface for shortcodes. So it provides like a standardized ways to add user interface to a shortcode in the WYSIWYG editor. So let's have a look at how that looks like. So here's our shortcode that we made, which is just like a simple button shortcode. So all we have to do is register the button shortcode and tell Shortcake that, okay, so there is the shortcode, it's called button, and it has these and these shortcode parameters, and then you just attribute different field types to different shortcode attributes. So you might say that in our shortcode, for example, we had like a button text and a button URL. So you might tell that those are two text fields that should have a user interface in Shortcake. And then just a few rows of code, and you end up with something that looks like this. So as you can see, this is basically the same screenshot as before, but now this time we've actually replaced the shortcode with the Shortcake representation by adding the shortcode to Shortcake. So this way you can get a nice preview in the editor, and it's going to look exactly like it does on the front end. And this is what it looks like on the front end. So it's going to be exactly the same. And when you add it, it's going to look like this. So you actually get like this cool UI where instead of like you press add media, and then you get a little extra tab that says add post element, where you have all your different Shortcake elements. And then once you find your button, you can just get this UI where you enter the button text and the button URL, and then it gets embedded right into the WYSIWYG editor. And we didn't have to write any code basically to do it, just a little bit of glue code. Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually a lot of themes like make special shortcodes and also like make a preview of them in the editor. It does, but the difference here is that this is like kind of more standardized way to do it. Because usually, if you want to embed preview a shortcode in the WYSIWYG editor, it's actually a lot of code. Like usually it involves writing a lot of JavaScript and a lot of PHP. But this way, it's very simple to, like, if you create your own shortcode, for example. Well, in comparison to making everything from scratch, it's very simple. So the use case we had for this was building our long reads, which is our long-term like long stories. So the challenge was to create like a simple user interface for regular like journalists, where they could choose between like a lot of different content and be able to edit it easily. So this is what it might, like a long read might look like. So you have like these nice like full width pictures. You might have some graphs, some photos that you're placed in different ways, and it's all very simple to edit. I'm going to just do a really short demo. There we go. So here's what here's a page from one of our long reads. So you can see like it has like this full width image, have like some sharing links here, a lot of text, a quote, some photos, and then to make this simple to edit in the backend, we've implemented, we've made our own shortcodes for all these different things, and then we've added shortcakes. So, for example, if you want to edit this header, you can just click it, and then it's going to give us a little editing button, which is going to pop out like an admin interface, where you can basically just pick the picture, you can add a caption, align it in different ways, and basically edit a lot of of the appearance. Same here with the share button. We can just we can basically we make these shortcodes, and then you can easily add them, remove them, and get a UI. And if you want to add a new shortcode, you just go to Add Media. You go to this Add Post Element screen, and here are all the different shortcodes that we've integrated. So it's very simple. So if you want to add a quote, you might just search here for quote. You'll find that. And you can just write the quote, who wrote it, add that, and then it's going to be right in the editor. So this was a really nice way to make it easy for content editors to edit textual content. So now we're moving over to site building. And the site building is more about setting up and maintaining the structure of a site. So not only just writing content, but maybe like selecting, should this be 2 columns? Should there be like this big image on the front page? So you can kind of think of it more like pages, posts versus pages, where posts is mostly text content, and the pages might be mostly like structural content, where you have like an about page with like a special layout and stuff like that. So it's kind of like two different modes. And with site building, it's actually good to have more options. We don't only want to be restricted to just like one row of text. We might want to have different columns and a lot more flexibility. And for that, we might need to sacrifice some of the preview ability. Like we might not be able to preview everything quite as well. Although there are like site builders that do work on the front end. Those exist, but usually it's nice to be kind of more, to have like a more abstract representation of the site or the page you're working on. So this is like what a page builder might look like. This is Visual Composer, and yeah, I wanted to contrast this because I think Visual Composer actually has one of the best user interfaces amongst page builders. And I want to contrast that with a poor page builder that might look something like this. So this, I just pulled this off the internet. This was like how to add a picture in some page builder. It's like, yeah, just, you know, do all these things. And so still, like, even among page builders, there's good ones and there's bad ones. Just because you can have 1,000 you know, buttons that do things doesn't mean you have to. Actually, and the site builder part of WordPress is actually a lot more developed. There's like a lot of really great options to choose from if you like site builders. So some of the biggest ones, Visual Composer, Beaver Builder is really up and coming. I don't know, has anyone used Beaver Builder? Johan has used Beaver Builder. Did you like it? And but in this case, I just wanted to use Visual Composer as an example. So site building, obviously, it has some problems. It's not as easy as just content creation. the amount of setting is too damn high. It's just, you know, you can do a little bit maybe too much if you're not very comfortable. It's a very steep learning curve if you compare it to like just regular text, and it's, you know, I feel like most kind of page builders are more aimed at developers than actual people who write text. It's like there's always like the CSS tab, and there's like this JavaScript tab, and you're supposed to like write a lot of stuff. So it has a lot of problems as well. So in this case, Visual Composer, which is a page builder, it's very popular. It's nice in this case because it's also built on top of Shortcodes, which means we can use it in our example quite easily, but also because it integrates nicely into the WordPress ecosystem. So if you've used or created a shortcode, it can be integrated with Visual Composer. So I thought we would actually integrate our button shortcode that we made previously and add the same shortcode to Visual Composer. This is kind of how much code it takes to just add it as a block in Visual Composer. And the end result might look something like this. So as we can see, very different than the previous UI, but still it's like a place where you have all your different like text blocks that you can choose from, and then you choose the button, and then you get to choose the button text and the button URL. So some parts are the same, but like not how you actually use it. So the case study, or how you say for this, is our campaign sites that we built, which are these like supposed to be like these bespoke, unique sites that you have to be able to build like really, really fast, that are more akin to this type of layout, the more complicated layouts. So I have a little demo for that as well. Yeah, so here's an example of a campaign site. As you can see, it's like a much wider array of content. It's not only text, it's like these headers and 2-column layouts, like a 3-column kind of thing, etc. And if you would go in and edit this, you can see that we're using Visual Composer on the backend instead of Shortcake. So here is the same page, but in a visual page builder, and this is great because it gives much better flexibility. If you want to have, you know, like a 2-column layout or a 3-column layout, you can have that. You can move stuff around. But on the other hand, it's much more difficult to preview what you're doing, and to kind of, it's much more abstract. If you don't like that, it's going to be quite hard to use it. So now we've talked about content creation and site building, and like we started wondering if there's something like kind of in between those two, and we think we have found like something in there, and we've kind of coined the term the managed builder. So a managed builder, what is that? It's simple to administrate. It's something that's flexible. It's something that doesn't limit the editors, or like the users, the people editing content, as much as like a content creation tool would do. But it doesn't give the same kind of scary impression that a page builder gives, because a page builder, like, you can literally do anything, and you can also, you know, really screw a site up if you use it wrong. So the problem with managed builders is like these are like basically you have to make it yourself. So you have to, this is between, you know, just text and just a page builder. This is something you build, like especially tailored for your clients that you make the site for. So how could we go about doing this? So in this case, we've used advanced custom fields. And there are some other field suites available for WordPress, but I think Advanced Custom Fields is probably the most popular and the most used ones. Has anyone here used Advanced Custom Fields? Yeah, a lot of people, maybe 30%. So what's great about Advanced Custom Fields is that it lets you create like custom fieldable sections, and I'm going to show what that kind of looks like. So in this case, what's nice about Advanced Custom Fields is that you can build a UI in a UI, so you don't have to code a lot. You just kind of pick which fields you want, and then it will generate a user interface for that. So here I've created, again, used the shortcode from the previous examples with the button and added it in a flexible content field in Advanced Custom Fields. So this is what it looks like. So here you have the flexible content layout, which is empty now. And then when you click this add block button, you can pick between different blocks. In this case, we only have the button block. And then once you've chosen to add a button, again, we have these two fields where you add the text of the button and the URL. And again, it's quite simple to integrate this. It's not a lot of code at all. And the case we have for this is what we call interactive long reads, which are not only text content, but it's more like a slideshow type of thing, where, oh, I see this slide is in Swedish still, sorry about that, where it's like the content is complex, but it's not just text content. So I'm gonna demo that quickly here as well. Okay, so here's the page, and you can see that it's not just like a typical just not typical text page. It's a little bit more than that. And if you would look at how this actually looks in the backend, it looks like this. So it's like this collection of it's using Advanced Custom Fields, and it's a collection of these different blocks, and each block represents a slide in the slideshow. So here you can choose the text you want. We've added fields to choose the video, like some fallback photos for mobile. You can pick the background audio. You can easily like rearrange the different slides, and you can easily add slides as well if you would like. So now we've seen 3 different ways of building user interfaces in WordPress, and how we should maybe take a step back and look at how these actually measure up against each other. So if we go back to this axis, we can see that the Shortcake is quite great for content creation, for editing text. Flexible content is quite great at kind of doing both text and site building, but it's not like particularly great at any of it. And Visual Composer is great at the site building part. And if we try to map that up against kind of like a simple interface versus a complicated interface, and a limited kind of experience versus a freeform experience, I mean, obviously this can this differs between people, but I feel it's kind of like this, where Shortcake, it's simple, but it's also very limited. You can't do anything complicated with it. Flexible content fields with ACF, it's a little bit more complicated, but also a little bit more freeform. And then Visual Composer is way up there. It's like quite a complicated interface, but where you can basically do anything in terms of structuring a site. So I also want to give some other tips about what you can do to improve like the editing experience for your users. For example, just creating an admin bar link. If you have written some, well, obviously write documentation for your users. That's a great first step. But then once you've written documentation, it's great if the user actually finds it. So one thing you can do is put a link in the admin bar, which we've done, as you can see here, where you have a special button here where you can click and you can go to the documentation for our long reads. You can also add help text directly in the dashboard. So here, this is from our campaign sites. We've added, some text, some help here for people. So like, okay, here's how you get started. Here's who you email if something is wrong. So just simple stuff like that that really kind of helps the user. Because just logging into the dashboard, it's quite bare, it's quite hard for users to figure out what to do. Another thing that we do a lot is just adjusting permissions. So if they for William, maybe the who doesn't do a lot of complicated stuff, maybe he shouldn't be admin. Maybe he should just be an editor, and that way he won't have all these like complicated complicated admin options that might confuse him or that might make him scared to mess something up. And again, it's not about limiting, it's about, giving them the courage to actually work on the site, because I think there's nothing worse than delivering a site and then having the user not use it. And I think that's really, really common, and I've seen that like a lot. And more often than not, it's because people are afraid. They're like afraid to mess something up and break something. So if you just give people the knowledge that they shouldn't be afraid, and to make it easy for them, I think that really like makes a difference. So now we're gonna say goodbye to our 3 different personas here. So I hope that what I've given you in this talk is that we've seen that we can help each and every one of these in different ways. We can help William be creative in his like textual content by stripping off all the stuff that he doesn't need, and we've seen that we can help Clara by focusing her a little bit, maybe using like an ACF, flexible content, to make something that is not completely free form, yet it's still more than just text. And then also we've seen that we can for Sarah, like, who's still very advanced, we can still do things like by allowing page builders but locking them down a little bit and locking down permissions but still giving like a lot to this particular user. And like, it's not a science, it's something you just have to kind of feel for every project. So in closing, just think about the types of users that will use the sites you build. And if you're not someone who builds sites, if you're just ordering a WordPress site, try to ask your developers or the people who are going to be developing it to build the administration interface that you need, and not the ones that they want to build. And we've seen that the WordPress has a great ecosystem of different plugins that we can use. So there's no need to like invent our own solutions for everything. We can just use what WordPress gives us. And building user interfaces, it never gets easier. I think it actually just gets harder the more you do it. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to my podcast, WPod, where we have an episode. It's in Swedish, but we have an episode about page builders specifically that you might find interesting, where we discuss a lot of these challenges that I've talked about. Got some links here. I want to say thank you, and just see if anybody has any questions.